talking about a new bill that was presented by Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana and Senator Roger Marshall on a new bill they introduced called the Where Are the Terrorists Now bill, essentially getting a report, well, where they'll have to actually, Border Patrol will actually have to report back and say, here's how many people are coming through, who they are from the terror watch list. As we know, it's getting more and more each and every day, it seems like.
That's right. And that's something that we have fought hard for at the ACLJ for a while now. We filed the FOIA request when we saw a cover-up by the Border Patrol and by the Department of Homeland Security when they had Yemeni nationals that were on the terror watch list, and they pulled down the press release and they tried to cover it up, and then they were concerned the horse was out of the barn, was like a direct quote that we uncovered from the FOIA request. But what this bill does is help that process so that the American people can see accountability, and they can also make sure that we know what's going on and that Congress can act appropriately.
Yeah, it seems like pretty common sense here, because this bill would require the Department of Homeland Security, as we said, to provide a monthly report to Congress disclosing the number of illegal migrants who have come over that are on the FBI's terror watch list that U.S. officials encounter at the southern border. So that's seems like it should not be a controversial thing. It's something that we as Americans should know. It's definitely something that senators should know. We are joined by Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas. As we've been talking about, all broadcast is one who introduced the bill, Where Are the Terrorists Now Act. I'm going to ask you, Senator, just to start off for our audience who maybe just tuning in or maybe don't understand, what does your bill require, especially of the DHS, that's different from what's already being done when it comes to tracking people on the terror watch list?
Right. So we've had 170 terrorists on the watch list encountered at the border over the past year. We have no idea where they are, who they are, were they caught and released. So what our bill does is it requires Secretary Mayorkas to communicate with Congress on a monthly basis, give us an update on who these people are, where they are. You know, are they working for universities doing research? Are they working for our military? What are these people doing? So it pulled them accountable. And in addition to those 170 people on the terrorist list, there's also 60,000 people of interest from the Middle East, from Iran, Syria, Turkey, and Afghan. We want to know where those people are, in addition to 20,000 Chinese nationalists that have been encountered at our borders over the past year.
Senator, we know that the border has never been more open than it is right now, and the Biden administration doesn't want to admit that these migrants that are on the terror watch list are crossing the border. Shouldn't they have a better plan in place by this point when they've seen how much has been happening at the border than what they're doing right now?
Well, of course they would. I want to make 2 points. Number one, this is why we called in April this year for a resolution of no confidence in Secretary Mayorkas, hoping that would launch some type of an impeachment investigation on the House side. And point two is Joe Biden wants this problem. I mean, I go back home, people ask me, why doesn't Joe Biden fix this problem? He wants these 8 million people that have crossed the border under his watch. He wants them voting Democrats over the next years to come. So Joe Biden wants this problem. All the more I'm frustrated with the fact on his latest legislation to fund Israel and Ukraine, when his border solution was actually to make the asylum process more efficient so more people would be crossing the border.
We also know that hundreds of people are coming on from the terror watch list, as you said, have already been caught under this administration. I guess for the American people, as someone who's dealt with not just the terror watch list, the traditional, we're thinking of what's going on in Israel, and obviously this has sparked a lot of this, but we all know about the fentanyl crisis. We've all been directly involved in it in terms of everyone knows somebody or has a family member who sadly has either passed away or has had some sort of adverse effect to what's happening in this world, this crisis that really is one of our biggest threats. I guess what number is it? Is it hundreds? Is it thousands? When is it going to be enough? What number is too many before we can all say this is enough?
Well, certainly here in the Senate, I'm starting to hear my friends across the aisle scream a little bit. And basically it's because you look at the state of New York, I think they've had 100,000 illegal migrants released into their state, and just the tax that is on that state alone. But to your point, the number's already been hit. How can Joe Biden sleep at night when 300 Americans die every day from fentanyl poisoning? So over the past year, we've lost more young adults to fentanyl poisoning than we did the entire Vietnam War. We haven't touched on human trafficking, all the other atrocities that the cartel is doing. The cartel is alive and well in the state of Kansas and in your state as well. So we should have hit that number a long time ago, and that's why I say don't listen to what Joe Biden says. Watch what he does. He actually wants this problem. He's trying to make it easier for illegal migrants to come into our nation.
Senator, you alluded to it a little bit earlier, but you've introduced legislation with your colleagues in the Senate. Senator Vance, Senator Lee, and Senator Cruz, and some others as well, I know, have joined to essentially break out the funding that President Biden proposed that he tied to the Ukraine funding. Why do you believe this is important to separate these funds as it gets appropriated, to not have a bill that ties up all these issues into one?
Yeah, it's so disappointing that the Biden administration won't state the situation in Israel clearly. They need the funding yesterday. They're about to have three very active border wars, three fronts going on. Plus, you have the Houthis in Yemen are launching missiles all the way to Israel. You have action in Syria, in Iraq as well. Israel desperately needs the help yesterday. As opposed to the Ukraine funding is very controversial. It's dead on arrival in the House. And any type of process over here, we will debate it for weeks, if not months, if you include Ukraine funding. If we have a standalone Israel funding package, it'll be a near unanimous vote on the Senate and close to unanimous vote on the House. We could get this done this week and certainly by the first of next week. Leave it to Joe Biden to find a way to divide his own party and divide Congress. The best present we could give the Speaker of the House right now would be legislation to secure the border with policy changes and build the wall.
But truthfully, the concern that we have right now in a bigger scale is terrorists coming through,
right?
Gangs coming through, people who are terrorizing our cities in terms of the drug cartels.
Many of these people that arrive, the ones that are encountered, when you look at these millions that are encountered, they come and they then claim asylum. They make an asylum claim that say we are dealing with persecution at home and therefore we need to come to the United States to seek asylum. Once they claim that, it's a different process than if they were just caught and not claiming asylum. And the Biden administration is expanding pathways for asylum claims. There's a huge backlog in the asylum court cases. Therefore, you get a court date, and many times you never show up, or they never end up seeing a judge because they end up being in the United States for decades before they get to their backlogged case. It's millions of backlogged cases. That's why something that's holding the administration accountable, I actually feel like Senator Marshall could get some bipartisan support because there are many U.S. senators that are concerned, especially in this moment, when you see what happened in Israel, when you see the Border Patrol memo on the potential of Hamas exploiting our southern border. We already know that these terrorist organizations are. You could see bipartisan support so that Congress can be armed with the appropriate information from the administration. I think it could get through. We'll see.